You are 7 years old, and today your childhood ends. A group of men you have never seen before knock on your family's door. Your mother answers. She does not cry. She does not beg. She simply nods and steps aside. Because in Sparta, this moment was not a tragedy. It was the greatest honor a family could receive. You are being taken to begin your training. And from this day forward, nothing about your life will ever resemble anything a normal child would recognize. No other civilization in the ancient world built warriors the way Sparta did. Not Rome, not Persia, not Egypt, nobody. Because Sparta did not just train soldiers. Sparta built them from the ground up, from the age of 7, from the inside out. This is your life, as every rank in the Spartan warrior system. Rank 1, Paids. The place they take you to is called the Agoge. It is not a school in any way you would understand. There are no comfortable rooms, no patient teachers explaining things gently, no going home at the end of the day. The Agoge is a total system. It owns you completely. From the moment you arrive until the moment you graduate, this is your entire world. You sleep on a thin reed mat that you cut and made yourself from the riverbank. No blankets. Winter in Sparta is cold. That is the point. Discomfort is not a problem to be solved. Discomfort is the lesson. You are fed just enough food to survive. Deliberately, not enough to feel full. The idea was not cruelty for its own sake. It was calculated. Hunger sharpens the mind. Hunger teaches resourcefulness. If you wanted more food, you had one option. Steal it. And if you got caught stealing, you were not punished for stealing. You were punished for getting caught. The boys around you become everything. Your unit, your family, your competition. You sleep beside them, train beside them, suffer beside them. The bonds formed in the Agoge were stronger than blood relationships in most other cultures because they were forged in shared hardship nobody outside could ever understand. Physical training begins immediately. Running, wrestling, swimming. Endurance marches carrying heavy loads across rough terrain. Your body is being rebuilt whether you want it to or not. But here is what surprises people about the Agoge. It was not just physical. The boys were also taught music, poetry, and public speaking. A Spartan warrior who could not speak clearly in front of others, who could not think on his feet, was considered incomplete. The body without the mind was just a weapon with nobody holding it. By the time you are 11, you have been cold more days than warm, hungry more days than full. But you are harder than any child anywhere else in the ancient world, and you are just getting started. Rank 2, Paidiskoi. At 12, the training changes completely. The physical demands that felt brutal before now feel like a warm-up. The runs get longer. The wrestling gets harder. The older boys who supervise your training are given explicit permission to test you in every way they can think of. You will be hit. You will be humiliated. You will be pushed past what you believed your body could do, and then pushed again. The system is specifically designed to find the point where you want to quit, and then keep going. This is also when the notorious krypteia begins for the most promising boys. The krypteia was a secret institution that sent young Spartans out alone into the countryside at night with nothing but a knife. Their mission was to survive by their own skill, to move without being seen, to make decisions alone in the dark without anyone to tell them what to do. It sounds like a rite of passage. It was. But it was also a genuine test of everything the Agoge had built. Could you think clearly when you were cold and alone and afraid? Could you make good decisions when nobody was watching? The Spartan system had one core belief above all others. The warrior you are when nobody is watching is the only warrior that matters. Courage, performed for an audience, means nothing. Courage in the dark, when you are alone, when there is no reward, that is the only kind worth having. At 15, you are given your first real responsibility, supervising younger boys in the Agoge. This is deliberate. Teaching forces you to understand what you know and admit what you do not. The boys under your supervision are watching everything you do. You become the standard you always looked up to. At 17, you stand at the edge of something completely different. The hardest years of the Agoge are almost behind you, but what lies ahead is harder in a different way. The hardest years of the Agoge tested your body. What comes next will test who you actually are. Rank 3, Eiren. You have graduated the Agoge. Take a moment with that. 12 years of deliberate hardship, hunger, cold, and pressure. 12 years of being tested in every way a person can be tested. And you are still standing. As an Eiren, you are technically a graduate, but your training is not finished. You are now the bridge between the boys and the full warriors. You live in the barracks with other Eirens, and you spend your days in advanced combat training, but now with real weapons against real opponents who are trying just as hard as you are. The spear work intensifies. The shield drills become precise and demanding. You learn the phalanx formation, the interlocking wall of shields that made Spartan armies almost impossible to break, until it becomes as natural as breathing. You practice it so many times that in actual battle, your body moves into position before your conscious mind even registers the command. You also take a wife at this age, which sounds like a relief after years of the Agoge. And in some ways it is. But in Sparta, even marriage was different. You did not live with your wife yet. You still slept in the barracks. You visited in secret, in the dark. The Spartans believed this kept the physical relationship strong and prevented the domestication that they saw as the enemy of the warrior spirit. The Eiren period is also when you receive your shield, your personal shield. This is not a small thing. In Sparta, the shield was the most symbolic object a warrior owned. It was not personal protection. It was collective. You held your shield to protect the man beside you. He held his shield to protect you. The phalanx only worked if every single person in the line trusted every other person completely. There was a Spartan saying that every mother knew and every warrior lived by. Come back carrying your shield, or come back on it. Retreat was not an option. Abandoning your shield was not an option, because abandoning your shield meant abandoning the man beside you, and in Sparta, that was the only failure that truly mattered. Rank 4, Hoplite. At 20, you become what Sparta built you to be. A hoplite, a full Spartan warrior, the most feared infantry soldier in the ancient world. You now live in the barracks full-time with your unit, your civilisation. These are the men you will fight beside for the next decade and possibly for the rest of your life. You eat every meal together. You train together every single day. You know each other's strengths and weaknesses better than your own family does. The civilisation is the basic unit of Spartan military society. Each one had 15 men. Each man contributed food from his own land to the communal table. If a man could not contribute his share, through poverty, through failure, through any reason, he was removed from the civilisation, which meant he was no longer a full Spartan citizen. The military and the social were completely inseparable. As a hoplite, you carry the full panoplia, the complete Spartan warrior's equipment, the bronze Corinthian helmet, the round hoplon shield, the 8-foot dory spear, the short Xiphos sword as a backup weapon, the bronze greaves protecting your legs. The full kit weighs around 30 kilograms. You can march 20 miles in it without stopping. Battle at hoplite level is nothing like the individual combat you see in films. The phalanx is a collective machine. 8 rows of warriors locked shield to shield, spears pointing forward over the shields of the row in front. When 2 phalanxes meet, it is a collision of organized walls of men, pushing and stabbing until one side breaks. The front row of the phalanx is where the best warriors stood. It was the most dangerous position and the highest honor. The Spartan in the front row knew he would take the first blows. He stepped into that position anyway, every single time. Between battles you trained, every day, no exceptions, no holidays, no weeks off. The Spartans were the only people in the ancient world who treated military training as a full-time occupation, rather than something men did in addition to farming or trading. This is why they were so good, not because they were born different, because they never stopped. Rank 5, Hippeis, 300 men. Out of a citizen population of thousands, only 300 were selected to serve as the Hippeis, the personal guard of the Spartan king and the elite shock force of the entire army. Selection was not based on birth or connections. It was based entirely on demonstrated excellence. 3 men called Hyppagrateio were were responsible for choosing the 300. They watched every warrior closely. They looked for the men who combined physical excellence with mental sharpness, reliable judgment under pressure, and the kind of calm that only comes from genuine fearlessness rather than the performed kind.
Being selected was not an invitation. It was a statement. You are the best Sparta has. Act accordingly. The Hippeis trained separately from the regular hoplite units. Their formations were tighter. Their drills were more demanding. Their standards in everything, equipment, fitness, discipline, tactical awareness, were higher than anything the regular army required. But here's the thing about the Hippeis that gets lost in the mythology. They were not selected to be heroes. They were selected to be reliable. The Spartan military system had no use for the warrior who charged ahead for personal glory. The warrior who broke formation to win individual fame was a danger to everyone around him. The Hippeis were chosen because they could be absolutely trusted to hold the line no matter what was happening around them. When the battle turned desperate, when the regular lines were wavering and the situation looked impossible, the Hippeis held. Not because they were fearless, because they had been trained for exactly this moment their entire lives. The impossible moment was what all of it was for. At Thermopylae in 480 BC, when 300 Spartans held a narrow mountain pass against an enormous Persian army for 3 days, it was the Hippeis who stood at the center of that line. Their king Leonidas chose them specifically, not randomly. He chose the men who had sons already born, men who had already passed on the Spartan bloodline, so that the future of Sparta was secured before the battle that had no exit. They knew they were not coming back. They went anyway, because that was the only answer Sparta had ever taught them. Rank 6, Polemarch, the war commander. Above the warriors, above even the Hippeis, stands the Polemarch, the war commander. Sparta had kings, 2 of them, always, from 2 separate royal houses, a system designed to prevent any single person from having unchecked power. But in the field, commanding the army in battle, the Polemarch held the operational authority, the man who decided where the line moved, which units flanked, when to hold and when to advance. Nobody became a Polemarch through ambition or political maneuvering. The Spartan system had no patience for men who wanted power for its own sake. The Polemarch was the warrior who had demonstrated over decades of service that his judgment was reliable under the most extreme pressure imaginable. He had been a boy shivering on a reed mat in the Agoge. He had been a teenager alone in the dark with nothing but a knife. He had stood in the front row of the phalanx and taken the first blow without flinching. He had led units, trained younger warriors, made decisions that cost men their lives and lived with those decisions afterward. The weight of command at this level is something most people never experience and almost nobody can fully describe. Thousands of lives moving according to your orders. A battle that will be decided in minutes of chaos after years of preparation. The difference between the right decision and the wrong one measured not in careers or reputations, but in whether the people around you live or die. The great Spartan commanders were not celebrated for brilliance or creativity. They were celebrated for steadiness, for the ability to look at a catastrophic situation and make a clear, simple, correct decision without panic, without hesitation, without the noise of fear distorting their thinking. That steadiness was not a natural gift. It was the Agoge. It was the krypteia. It was 30 years of never stopping, never retreating, never looking for the comfortable option. It was a lifetime of becoming exactly this. From a 7-year-old boy taken from his family to the commander of the most feared army the ancient world had ever produced. That was your life in the Spartan warrior ranks. And here's what I think about when I think about Sparta. People look at the Agoge, the hunger, the cold, the years of hardship, and they call it brutal. And it was brutal. There is no softening that. But the Spartans had a different question. Not is this comfortable, but does this work? Does this build the kind of person who can stand in an impossible situation and not break? The answer at Thermopylae and in dozens of battles across centuries was yes. 300 men held a pass against an army that history estimates at hundreds of thousands. They held it for 3 days. They knew from the beginning there was no way out. They went anyway. Which rank would you have been? The young Paide just beginning to understand what he signed up for? The Hoplite who trained every single day without exception? The Hippeis who was chosen because he could be trusted when everything fell apart? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. Next, we are going east, to the samurai, to a warrior culture that was just as disciplined as Sparta, but built on an entirely different set of values. Subscribe now because that video is coming very soon.